Students, today we will discuss a very important topic, and that is menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is the reproductive cycle. It is the reproductive cycle in female primates. Now primates includes the monkey, apes, human being. So the reproductive cycle which is taking place in the female primate, it is known as menstrual cycle. Now it occurs in human beings, it occurs at a regular interval of 28 to 29 days, and that cycle is known as menstrual cycle. Now when the first time this menstruation takes place at puberty, it is known as menarche, and when it stops, it is known as at the age of 50, it is known as menopause. So today we will discuss what are the changes, what are the hormones, and how they are their level changes during this cycle. So we will study this in detail. So just see here, first of all you should know what is menstrual cycle. It is the reproductive cycle which takes place in female primates. Second thing, we can classify or we can divide the cycle into different phases, and the three important phases are menstrual phase or bleeding phase, follicular phase or proliferative phase, then comes the ovulation, and the last one is the luteal phase. So we will see what happens during these phases. Clear? So I have drawn the cycle here, and these are the number of days. So we have started from the day 1 when the menses begin and up to the 29th day. Here I have written all the changes which are taking place. So we will start from the very first day, that is when the menstruation starts. So the first phase is known as menstrual phase. It is also known as the bleeding phase. So it is of the duration, it starts, suppose it starts on the first day. So it will be from 1 to 5th day. That period where the bleeding takes place, it is known as the bleeding phase or menstrual phase. Now what happens? During this phase, we can see the pituitary hormones, that is the FSH and LH, their level is low, and the ovarian hormone, that is estrogen and progesterone, their level is also very low. So here, first of all, we will see what is the level of hormone. All the four hormone, that is FSH, LH, estrogen, progesterone, all these hormone level is very low during the menstrual phase or the bleeding phase. Now what happens after when the cycle comes at its terminal stage, that is around the 4th or 5th day, what happens? The level of FSH and LH starts increasing. Initially at the first day, its level is very low, that of FSH, LH, estrogen and progesterone, their level is very low. But when the cycle comes at its terminal stage during the menstrual phase, what happens? The level of FSH and LH starts increasing. So in terminal stage, what happens? The level of FSH and LH starts increasing at the terminal stage of the first phase, that is menstrual phase, which starts at the first day up to the 5th day. Clear? Now what happens? What happens to the ovary? Now during this, the primary follicles is stimulated, or we can say they are stimulated for development, because after this phase they will enter the next phase, that is follicular phase. So in this phase, that is menstrual phase, they will be stimulated for their development. We will see the changes in the uterus. Because the level of progesterone is very less, what will happen? There will be the breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus. There will be the breakdown of the endometrial lining of the uterus due to the low level of the progesterone. I have already told you that during the menstrual phase, or we can say during the bleeding phase, the level of progesterone hormone is very less. And we know that this hormone is required for the maintenance of pregnancy. But as its level is low, what will happen? There will be the breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus and its blood vessels. it will come out in the form of menstrual flow. In a normal, we can see there is 40 to 80 ml of blood is lost during the normal menstruation. Clear? So 40 to 80 ml of blood is lost, but more than it should not be. It is not normal. So here we can see that first we have divided it into different phases. The first phase is the menstrual phase. During the very first day of this menstrual phase, it is for 5 days. We will take it as 5 days. Now, the very first day, the level of all the hormones, whether it is pituitary or whether it is ovarian, the level of the hormone is less. FSH, LH, progesterone and estrogen, the level is less. As a result, what will happen? Due to the low level of progesterone, there will be the breakdown of the endometrial lining of the uterus and its blood vessels. If you see in the ovary, what happens? The primary follicles are stimulated for the development. So you have to remember that this menstrual phase is for 1 to 5 days. 5 days. If we start the cycle from the 1 day, so it will be from 1 to 5th day. Clear? When it is at the terminal stage, what will happen? The level of the hormone FSH and LH will start increasing. Clear? So this was about menstrual phase. Now come to the next phase. The second phase is follicular phase. The name is given because during this phase, there is the development of the follicle. The follicle will grow from primary follicle to secondary, then tertiary. So that phase is known as follicular phase, or it is also known as proliferative phase, because now the endometrial lining will start become thickening. So it is also known as proliferative phase. Now we'll see what are the changes which takes place in this phase, which starts from the 6th day and up to the 13th day. Just see here. Follicular phase or proliferative phase. Now here FSH and LH, these hormones starts increasing gradually. So they started increasing gradually. They started at the terminal stage of the menstrual phase and their level is increasing. Now due to the increased level of FSH, that is follicle stimulating hormone, what will happen? The follicles will start developing. They will grow. They will develop from primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary, and then to a mature Graafian follicle. Clear? So it is due to the FSH. And when these follicles will grow, they will also secrete the hormone estrogen. Clear? So first of all, the level of FSH and LH will increase. Due to the increased level of FSH, the follicles will grow and they will also secrete the hormone estrogen. So what will happen? The level of estrogen will also increase. So just see here, primary follicles will grow to the secondary, then tertiary, and then they will become mature Graafian follicles. Since they secrete estrogen, so what will happen? Follicle secretes estrogen. So the level of estrogen will also increase in the follicular phase. Clear? And the level of estrogen will be maximum, will be in its peak when at the terminal stage of the follicular phase. When the follicular phase is about to terminate, then what will happen? The level of estrogen will be maximum. You can see here, at the terminal stage of the follicular phase, what will happen? The level of estrogen will be at its maximum. Now what happens? Due to the increase, what will happen? Now the level of LH will also increase and it will be maximum in the 14th day. Clear? Now this LH surge, the maximum amount of LH which is produced, it is known as LH surge, and due to the large increase in the LH, what will happen? The Graafian follicle will rupture. It will rupture and the secondary oocyte will be released. Clear? So at the 14th day, what will happen? The Graafian follicle will rupture and the secondary oocyte will be released. So for the rupturing of mature Graafian follicle, what is required? LH surge is required first thing, and this process is known as ovulation. So you should remember that when there is maximum amount of, when the LH will be at the peak, it is known as LH surge, and it will result in the rupturing of the Graafian follicle and release of secondary oocyte. Clear? And that process is known as ovulation. Now, what will happen? Due to the increase in the level of the estrogen, we can see what changes will take place in the uterus. What will happen? Due to the increased level of estrogen, there will be the proliferation in the uterus. It means the estrogen will result in the mitotic division, and what will happen? Our this endometrial lining, it will become what? It will become thicker. It will start becoming spongy. So there will be proliferation. So that's why it is known as proliferative phase. I think it is clear. So the period from 6th day to the 13th day, it is known as your follicular phase because there is development of follicle, and it is also known as proliferative phase. During this phase, what happens? The level of FSH increases and LH increases. Due to the increased FSH, what will happen? The Graafian follicles in the ovary will develop, and these Graafian follicle will secrete estrogen. Due to the increase in the amount of estrogen, what will happen? There will be thickening of the endometrial lining of the uterus. It will become spongy. Clear? Estrogen level will be at its peak at the terminal stage of the follicular phase. I think it is clear. Now on the 14th day, what happens? The egg is, the secondary oocyte is released from the Graafian follicle. So it will be known as ovulation, and it is under which hormone? Under the hormone LH. When LH will be maximum, will be at its peak, it is known as LH surge. After that, the next phase, that is from the 15th to the next 28th day, it will be known as the luteal phase, or it is also known as the secretory phase. Now here we will see what happens in the luteal phase or the secretory phase. Length of this phase is 14 days. During the 14th day, what happened? The ovulation took place, and after that, what will happen? The next 14 days will be called as the luteal phase or the secretory phase. Progesterone and estrogen increases in the middle of this phase, and in absence of fertilization, it decreases. Now we will see here what will happen. This is the Graafian follicle. Now this Graafian follicle ruptures and the secondary oocyte is released, and this Graafian follicle will be converted into corpus luteum. This corpus luteum is endocrine, and it secretes the hormone progesterone and estrogen. So here what will happen? It will secrete the hormone progesterone and estrogen, and due to which what will happen? There will be increase in the level of estrogen and progesterone. If the fertilization takes place, what will happen? It will be maintained for the 9th month. But if the fertilization does not take place, what will happen? After the 9th day of ovulation, this corpus luteum will start degenerating, and it will converted into corpus albicans. It will degenerate, and on the 28th day, it will become corpus albicans. Just remember, Graafian follicle, it will rupture on the 14th day, secondary oocyte is released, and this Graafian follicle will be converted into the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is itself endocrine, so it will secrete progesterone and estrogen. If the fertilization of the secondary oocyte takes place, what will happen? It will be maintained for the 9th month. It will produce the hormone progesterone, and the pregnancy will be maintained. But if there is no fertilization, what will happen? After that, it will start degenerating, and it will degenerate, and it will result in the formation of a white body that is known as corpus albicans. So here we can see progesterone and estrogen level is high in the middle of this phase because it's waiting for the secondary oocyte to get fertilized. But if fertilization does not take place, it starts degenerating, and the level of the hormone will get decrease. Due to the presence of estrogen and progesterone, negative feedback on the both FSH and LH. Because of the presence of this hormone, estrogen and progesterone, there will be the negative feedback, and the level of FSH and LH will be reduced. Clear? They will be decreased. Corpus luteum, if no fertilization takes place, the corpus luteum gets converted into corpus. It will degenerate and will be changed into a white body which is known as corpus albicans. Progesterone increases secretory nature of endometrium. We have to remember progesterone, it makes the endometrium secretory in nature and it increases, it makes it vascularized. Clear? So the main work of the progesterone is it makes it glandular. It makes the endometrium glandular and it makes it highly vascularized. Progesterone and estrogen increases the thickness. These two hormones increases the thickness of the endometrium of the uterus and it is thickest on the 23rd day. It is thickest during the 23rd day. In absence of fertilization due to declining level of estrogen and progesterone, I have already told you that if fertilization does not takes place, what will happen? It will get degenerating. And what will happen? There will be the level of estrogen and progesterone will be reduced, and as a result what will happen? We can see in absence of fertilization due to declining level of estrogen and progesterone, the thickening of the uterine wall will decrease in terminal stage of this phase. During the terminal stage, what will happen? The thickening will become less, and what will happen? After that, again the menstrual phase will come. So this was all about the menstrual cycle. So here you have to remember what is menstrual cycle. It is the reproductive cycle which takes place in the female primates. Second thing, it can be divided into three important phases. That is menstrual phase 1 to 5th day. Then is your follicular phase 6 to 13th. It is also known as proliferative phase. Then on the 14th day ovulation takes place due to LH surge, and after that 16 to 28 next phase is known as luteal phase or secretory phase. You have to remember what are the changes which takes place in the uterus, in the ovary, ovarian hormones and the pituitary hormones. Clear? So this was all about the menstrual cycle. Thank you.